Hi, I'm Jason, and welcome to Community Design Review, where we look at some of the best cards from the Custom Magic subreddit this week as voted on by you, the community. Our shoutout for the week is Vessel of the Damned. 2 mana for a 6/6 artifact vehicle. Vessel of the Damned can't be blocked except by spirits. Whenever a creature dies, put a crew counter on Vessel of the Damned, and crew X, where X is 6 minus the number of crew counters on Vessel of the Damned. This idea of crew counters on vehicles to reduce the crew cost is really cool and would be interesting to see used in several different ways over the course of a set or a block. And of course, creatures dying adding to the crew cost feels just perfect in flavor for this card. My main complaint with the card is the fact that it can't be blocked except by spirits. That feels just a bit too narrow to be really good. It's mostly just it's unblockable, and that feels pretty strong. I feel like it'd be better to say one specific creature type that can't block it instead, or perhaps just give it some ability like flying. And an interesting note, even if you manage to get 6 crew counters on Vessel of the Damned, reducing the crew cost to 0, that doesn't mean it is always a creature. You'll still have to tap a creature that has at least 0 power, which is pretty much anybody but this guy, in order to make it a creature for the turn. Innovative design, and I really enjoy it. Our first meme card for the week is Nissa's Blunder. 3 and a green for a sorcery. Each land becomes a creature with power and toughness, each equal to its mana value. They're still lands. This kind of harkens back to several cards we've seen previously that are basically just color-shifted versions of cards using abilities in that color to make it, quote, in color pie. The difference with this card is green technically does get land destruction. It happens very infrequently, but we do get it. Actually, we had a couple in Kaldheim, but I'm not sure green has ever had any sort of mass land destruction. Overall, the joke is decently funny, and maybe you can even find a way to change the mana value of your lands and make this actually turn them into bigger creatures. Our second meme card for the week is Time Block. 1 and a blue for a sorcery. Each player shuffles. Storm. That is... no. Please. This is for that sweet Storm combo with Kozai's Trickster. Man, I love that deck. And for our third meme card for the week, we have Bolas's Science Fair Project. 1 and a blue for an instant. Target artifact or enchantment becomes a planeswalker in addition to its other types. So upon first read of this, it's a pretty useless card and is funny, but kind of asks, what's going on in the mind of 220? But once you realize the fact that any planeswalker with 0 loyalty counters on it will instantly die by a state-based action, then that means that this in fact acts as a disenchant for blue. Now, while I think this is an extremely clever way to try to get artifact and enchantment removal in blue, we apparently don't need clever ways to get artifact removal in blue, and we probably won't need that to get enchantments out of blue either. I can't even speak because this is so frustrating, and soon enough we'll probably get enchantment removal in blue as well, so it's only a matter of time before white does indeed become totally unnecessary. Our number 5 card for the week is Snapcaster Mage. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 creature human wizard. Doesn't have flash, so it's bad. When Snapcaster Mage enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. If you do, put X time counters on it where X is equal to its converted mana cost. That's supposed to say mana value, you stupid. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. Despite the pun name that made me think it was probably going to be another meme card, this is actually a really good card. No, it's probably not Snapcaster Mage. Again, doesn't have flash, and also you can't cast a spell right then. But if you're playing this in a competitive deck, what you're exiling is likely going to be a 1 mana cost spell anyway. So when you exile it, you're just going to get it next turn, whether that's a lightning bolt or a preordain or what have you. It's going to be pretty powerful, and you could argue better than Snapcaster in one way, which is that you don't actually have to pay the cost for that spell. So really cool design. Number 4 this week is Chomping Grounds, a land that enters the battlefield tapped, devour 2, pay 1 life and tap, add black, red, or green. 6 mana, Chomping Grounds becomes a 0/0 black, red, and green horror creature with menace and indestructible until end of turn. It's still a land. This seems really sweet. It's a tri-land that's going to cost you life, meaning it's not going to be strictly better than a Savage Lands, for example. But it is going to be really strong. So if it was just a man land, you could... But it is going to be really strong. So if it was just some man land you could animate, like a Celestial Colonnade or whatever, then it would probably be too strong. But the fact that you have to sacrifice a bunch of permanents in order to make it a creature, well, you have to sacrifice at least 1 just to make it a 2/2, then that makes it a lot more reasonable. Of course, that can also make it quite a bit better if you want to sacrifice 6 permanents, and then that makes this a 12/12. Not to mention it has both menace and indestructible, which I think is probably fair, seeing as you have to sacrifice permanents and pay 6 mana to get it to be a land. Not a ton to say, but this is a pretty sweet design. For number 3 this week, we have Invasive Stowaways. 1 and a white, free sorcery. Create 2 rabbit tokens. They're 0/1 white rabbit creatures with white, tap another untapped rabbit you control. Create 2 rabbit tokens. Cool flavor on this, and it seems like it can be decent, but you're not really going to like how people actually end up using those rabbits, I can assure you. They're going to get sacrificed, slaughtered, maybe even create an act that truly is blasphemous. But until then, they'll be multiplying. For number 2 this week, we have Easily Distracted Giant. 2 and a red for a 5/4 creature human giant. Not human, it's just giant. I can't read, I'm dyslexic. Trample, whenever Easily Distracted Giant blocks or becomes blocked by a creature with power 1 or less, prevent all combat damage it would deal this turn. This actually kind of reminds me of a card from way back in the day in Rise of the Eldrazi called Arrogant Bloodlord, except this doesn't cost double of its color, and it's a 5/4, not a 4/4, and it has Trample, and it doesn't get destroyed when it blocks or becomes blocked. So it's better than it in every way. And finally, number 1 is Know Thy Enemy. Blue mana for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay 1 mana of its target's colors, counter target spell. Awesome idea for a counter spell. It is actually counter spell if you're playing it against a blue spell. Otherwise, it's just a differently costed counter spell. I'm not sure how actually strong it is. If you're playing this in a 5-color deck, or at least a deck that can produce mana of any color, then it can counter anything and become very powerful. Otherwise, in probably a 3-color deck, it could be a pretty decent sideboard card, or maybe a main board card that you just side out pretty liberally. And those are all the cards we have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and let us know what you thought of the cards that we reviewed this week. Also, in case you don't know, we have a Discord that is pretty dang cool, so make sure to check that out, link in the description.